Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to my colleague from Missouri for sharing Frankie's story with us today and the fight for progress, the life she lived. I was thinking last night as we were debating here on the floor about one of the ways that Martin Luther King summarized how we move forward towards justice. And he said, it takes the tireless exertions and passionate concerns of dedicated individuals. That's what it takes to move us forward. And it sounds like she was every bit the tireless individual, the passionate individual who worked to advance justice. And thank you for sharing that story. Well, speaking of fighting and justice, we have a lot to talk about. We're here in the middle of the Trump shutdown. Now, last night was quite interesting. Democrats came to the floor and said, we need to keep the government open. So we want to have a debate and a vote on a provision to extend the government by 24 hours so that we can really force the leadership to get in the room and work out a resolution on multiple issues that are already bipartisan issues. Shouldn't be that hard. But the majority leader, who's in control of this body, proceeded to say that he objected, and it takes unanimous consent to be able to get to a bill. So he sealed the deal on the Trump shutdown, made sure that this body couldn't debate or vote on keeping the government open for another day. And Senator Nelson had put that forward, and then Senator Tester tried to say, okay, well, let's take a little more time. You don't think you can do it in a day? How about 3 days? So Senator Tester moved to proceed to consideration of an amendment that would provide a continuing resolution for 3 days, keep the government open 3 days, to force our leadership on both sides to sit down and work out the details on these bipartisan proposals. And again, the majority leader objected. He sealed the deal on the Trump shutdown, and then had the gall to come to this floor and blame others when he's in charge. That's fascinating, this blame game by those who are in charge. Republicans are in control of the presidency. Republicans are in control of the House. Republicans are in control of the Senate. Republican leader objected to debating an extension of our government staying open. Not once, but twice last night. Blocked it. Well, it's very clear where the responsibility lies for this situation, which should never occur here in the United States. No, President Trump, back in 2013, said the responsibility for shutdown, of course, this was when President Obama was in office, said it always comes back to the president. Well, how true those words are today. Now, in 2013, there wasn't unified control. You didn't have the same party in charge of the presidency and the House and the Senate. So it was a little bit of a more mixed up story, but then public citizen Trump said it's all the president's fault. But now we have a different situation where the same party controls all three settings. And let me tell you that the mechanism by which the Senate operates has changed dramatically. You can think of the possibility of offering amendments on the floor of the Senate. Oh, here's an amendment box. And you can take and put your proposal in that box so that you can get it in line to be debated. But the majority leader has the ability to close that box and put a padlock on it. And that's what Mitch McConnell did. The technical term here is filling the tree, but that's a little hard to picture, so let's talk about the amendment box. He put a padlock on it and said there will be no Democratic amendments considered. And he has that power under the rules of the Senate. And then he did something else, which is interesting, which really is a new level of obstruction of dialogue here in the Senate. He took that box and he put a tarp over the top of it. Now that tarp is another type of motion that has to be resolved before you can even get to the amendments to propose that one be taken out of the box so another can be put in. And in fact, if you were following the Senate last night, you saw this very crazy motion in which the majority leader himself took the tarp off the box, a resolution related to a motion to move to committee, the bill to committee and back, so that he could change the amendments that he'd put in the box. But that box remained completely forbidden ground for Democrats to be able to participate in, to be able to put a bill on this floor. So it takes particular, I don't know what the right word for it is, particular, I guess, determination to spin the politics for that individual who has locked up the amendment box, preventing Democrats from putting a proposal on the floor, even a bipartisan proposal supported by Republicans, and then to blame Democrats who he's locked out of the process. Other responsibility is absolutely clear here. This Trump shutdown sits with the president, who made an offer a week ago Tuesday and took it back a week ago Thursday, made another offer a couple days ago, a few hours later withdrew it. Yes, I want to take on these issues. No, I don't. Yes, I do. No, I don't. The Democratic leader said it's like negotiating with Jell-O. There's just no there to be able to have rational policy consideration. So this Trump shutdown is doing a lot of damage across this country. It'll do more damage with every succeeding day. And I say this directly to the President of the United States. Get engaged. Your job is to govern, to be part of the dialogue, not to be going off to Pennsylvania to campaign, not to be ignoring issues until it's only 24 hours out before we hit a deadline, not to be spending every weekend golfing and making your personal schedule off limits so the public won't see that you're virtually ever paying attention to governing. Mr. President, and I'm speaking President Trump, get engaged. You have a job to do. This is your shutdown, just as you said it is the president's responsibility in 2013. Now, these issues that we're wrestling with, these issues go back to the middle of last year, because it's in the middle of last year that we were approaching the deadline for the fiscal year, which ends at the end of September. And so it was time to get a bill for children's health care to this floor and debate it and reauthorize it, renew it before we hit September 30th. And it was the time to get the bill for our community health clinics to the floor to be debated, reauthorized so our community health clinics would stay open. It was the time to get to the floor a bill to take on the opioid epidemic. But what was the Republican Party engaged in? They weren't engaged in facilitating addressing health care problems. Oh no, they were engaged in a bill to try to wipe out health care for 30 million Americans. And we had 5 different versions of that bill here on the floor. They wiped out health care from 22 million to 30 million Americans by a bare margin of a vote. We were able to block those bills, and I thank my Republican colleagues who joined in that effort. But they weren't interested in talking about children's health care, or community health care clinics, or opioid crises. And then, when finally the health care debate was sealed, what did they turn to? Not the governing issue of spending bills that should have been done by October 1st. Oh no, they had a different plan. A tax bill to deliver $1 trillion plus to the richest Americans. That was more important than children's health care. Increasing wealth inequality was more important than our children. Increasing income inequality was more important than our children. So, we, the Democrats, are saying stop Stop taking up the time of this body on making the situation worse in America on health care, making the deficit worse here in America, robbing the common fund to enrich the richest Americans. Stop all of that. Let's instead address these issues right before us. The members of our community who have gone to grade school and high school and are in our community colleges and colleges, working in our businesses, doing so much for our community, and their legal status isn't nailed down, and there's bipartisan support to nail that down. That's just and fair and right. And all of us have members in our community that are contributing so much and are being left in just an incredibly stressful limbo. They deserve better. And I thank the Democrats and the Republicans who have said so. So here it is, a bipartisan deal waiting to happen. But President Trump says yes today and no tomorrow. Yes in the morning, no in the afternoon. And quite frankly, the Republican leadership does the same thing. So quit saying yes and no and just say yes. Let's get this bipartisan deal done. Let's get the opioid funding done. It's an epidemic. It's killing more people in America than traffic accidents are killing. So let's get help in the right place. Yes, let's get children's health care bill done. Senator Stabenow asked unanimous consent for immediate consideration of the bill for permanent chip funding. But who said no? The Republican leader came to the floor and blocked it because he's in charge and he's got the amendment box all locked up. So Democrats can't put even a bipartisan proposal before this body. So I thank Senator Nelson, fiercely fighting to keep us open for another day for negotiations. I thank Senator Tester for putting forward the proposal to stay open for 3 more days while we force negotiations to get these important issues addressed. I thank Senator McCaskill, who just spoke, for working so hard to get a bill before this body that would ensure that the pay and death benefits for members of the armed services were taken care of. But who said no in every situation? Who said, I know I'm keeping the lock on the amendment lockbox? Mitch McConnell, Republican leader of the Senate, complete control. This is no longer a deliberative body. Deliberative body debates issues. Deliberative body invites proposals from all members. This is completely unlike the Senate I saw as a young man when I first came here as an intern in 1976, intern for Senator Hatfield, where each side offered amendments, and they argued their hearts out, and they voted. And a simple majority sent an issue forward or killed it. But now we can't even start a conversation. And when we do get an amendment, it's at a supermajority. And that's a rare event. It's happened outside the reconciliation bills, which were a special provision for the budget. We've had virtually not a single Democratic amendment in all through 2017. That's what's happened to the Senate. And that's why we're here, and the responsibility is clear. This Trump shutdown should never have happened. President Trump needs to get his act together and get engaged. The majority needs to quit locking the amendment box so that we can have actual dialogue and debate here on the floor. The Republicans have to quit blocking things that both Democrats and Republicans have agreed to on children's health care, on community health clinics, on opioids, on legal status for our dreamers. This should not be a hard deal to close. So let's open this government up and let's get these issues dealt with and done for the benefit of the citizens of the United States of America. Thank you, Mr. President.